when you're up late at night, um, just looking up quotes and just things that are relevant from the past. Um, a quote from George Orwell goes like this: "If liberty means anything at all, it means the right to tell people what they do not want to hear." A lot of truth goes into that, and a lot of people rather just have their heads in the sand like an ostrich. I mean, the last couple of years, trying to get a modest message about what needs to be done to restore common sense into our economy and actually even go further than the previous common sense we had at one point. Um, People just didn't want to hear it for many, many years. Um, and they still don't want to hear it today. That they feel threatened, and not just the right wing, the the corporate Democrats, the centrists, the normies, to use a more internet-based term. These They do not want to have these conversations, and yeah, the right wingers, they don't want to have this conversation. And I'm so glad that the conversation is being had. But I do have a worry and a concern. Not only am I worried that Bernie Sanders was cheated a second time, 2016 and again 2020. I have also an additional worry with all the upheaval that everybody's getting very overconfident about Donald Trump being defeated. You got to remember, in 2016, we all just assumed that Orange Man was going to lose because who takes an Orange Man seriously? We thought that we underestimated him. And for anybody who knows me, say, "Well, you didn't help by voting third party." Look, I live in North Carolina. It ain't going to matter how I vote North Carolina. If it's North Carolina was as blue as California or as red as Mississippi, and it's actually kind of purple compared to those two states. But the point I'm trying to make is North Carolina is red enough that I feel no guilt about my protest vote. But I do encourage that if you do live in a really, really swing state to think about your options in regard to 2020. I won't hold it against you if you vote your conscience and vote third party, but I also won't hold it against you if you decide to tactically vote for the lesser evil to oust Donald Trump out of office. Um, but some people will act like, well, I mean, for example, I'm just thinking, what if? And this what if scenario is, what if Donald Trump is reelected? And I have my concerns that the almost previous decade, not quite fully a decade, that talks of social democracy um, being pretty much in the open these days. It's like we achieved that minus the really awesome healthcare for everybody and the other perks that goes along with the welfare state existing in many European countries. Um, and my concern is that the that the left, center left, will find a way to pretty much quiet down what they perceive as the hard left. And how sad it is that the hard left in America, the moderate, it would be considered the very moderate left, or even bland centrists in many European countries. But we must not, we must not stop with this. Let's keep going. And again, I will say this, and I've said it before, and I'll say it again. And I have a tendency to even say I said this before, and I'll say it again, but I'll say it. I've said it before, and I'll say it again at any rate. Bernie Sanders was a perceived threat. It made me feel good knowing that he was considered a threat to people. And I have absolute zero respect for pretend progressives, fake liberals that will crap on Bernie Sanders. But he forced a conversation that the Republican Party did not. The Republican Party enjoyed the past 40 years, or past time period since the 1980s in particular, since the beginning of the Reagan era until just a few short years ago. They enjoy seeing the Democrats being controlled opposition. And many Democrats don't even realize that they're being useful idiots for the Republican Party, that they are an enabler. The phrase goes that let's see, progressivism is the graveyard for Democrats, so or something to that effect. And so, if you're a progressive and you try to make a difference, you end up being silent somehow. Republicans didn't want this talk of social democracy. The Democrats didn't want this talk of social democracy, which makes me very, very glad that there was talk about social democracy in the last few years. We need more of it. And George Orwell, it's kind of funny just thinking about George Orwell, because George Orwell, for many years, I've heard the right quote George Orwell, which is ironic because George Orwell was a socialist when he was alive. I mean, I own 1984, and George Orwell was an absolute anti-authoritarian, and he was the most one of the most foremost thinking pro liberty, pro individualism in person around. Also favor socialism, and they're not mutually exclusive. Um, you know, call it, if you want to be more descriptive than social democracy, call it democratic socialism. You can even call it libertarian socialism. There is such a term. Michael Foot, the former leader of the British Labour Party, when asked in the 1960s, "What kind of a socialist are you?" And the reporter said, "Well, you're you're not a communist." And Michael Foot said, "Never believed in communism." "You're not a Marxist." He said, "Well, might be more that than anything else, but that doesn't quite describe me." "Well, you're not a Christian socialist." They're not a Christian socialist." And then the reporter asked, "Where is the mainstream of your socialism?" And Michael Foot responded, "If I have to say anything, I'd say that I'm a libertarian socialist because I believe socialism is the way to achieve more rights for all people." So, you Americans, if you're not familiar with Michael Foot, get familiar with Michael Foot, the late Michael Foot. You'll be surprised. He looked like Bernie Sanders turning 100 years old. I'm not kidding you when I say that. One of my favorite figures in the British Labour Party. But in 1983, he presided over, unfortunately, one of the largest defeats for the British Labour Party ever, until just last year when Labour was seriously defeated in the UK. Uh, they call it the longest suicide note in history. The media did in 1983, and the longest suicide note because of the manifesto, the platform of the British Labour Party, which called for sweeping renationalizations of major factions and parts of the economy. Because Margaret Thatcher engaged in a big series of privatization measures and schemes out there. Um, Michael Foot is an interesting character, and he's of that tradition that's you associate with someone like a George Orwell. And George Orwell also once said that in the Road to Wigan Pier that for a free society that and defeat of fascism that a socialist party would be needed. And I you look at America, you look how inept that the Democrats are, and look what they nominated, and it tells you that we're going to have to face facts. Leftists are going to have to realize we're going to need our own Labor Party, and I hope that we can work on that. But anyway, these are my words. 2:18 in the morning Eastern Standard Time on 4th of July. I may do a 4th of July Independence Day video if I have a little bit of energy later on. So if you like what you heard here today, press like, subscribe, let people know about this channel, share the information. If possible, create your own channel, create your own platform, do the same. And let's go and defeat the algorithms of social media that unfortunately plagues it. I'm Bernie Bro. Have a great night.